Welcome to another Thursday in Geeks of the Week. I'm Mario. This week I answer the question and get to comic book reviews. But before I do any of that, let me address my fellow geeks. Steph embraced turning a hipster by rocking her glasses. Kuliovitz is off pretending to be Green Lantern again. And yes, again, this is not the first time. Luluko had a really honest and open video. I think everybody should check that out. And I could sympathize with her because I've been picked on before and that always sucked. So I'm sorry, Luluko. But on a brighter note, I am totally down with having Luluko week. And I'm super serious. I'm going to get a wig and this is going to happen. So everybody has that to look forward to. Finally, as you all know, Nikki will not be with us here tomorrow because she's currently at the Wizarding World in Florida. After I Google what that is, I cannot imagine how excited she must be right now and just completely geeking out. However, I am a little concerned now because I don't think she's going to want to come back. Nikki, I'd like to remind you people care about you here and expect you to return here next week. And with that said, drink a butterbeer for me. I'm sure nobody has told you that yet, but drink a butterbeer for me. This is all part of the Geek's evil plan to get you good and drunk. We don't know why, but I think it'd be fun to see. Anyways, now on to the question. Steph asked a question this week of what do you think of geek and nerd culture becoming more popular and part of the mainstream. She did such an excellent job answering that question, you guys might as well just check out her response because I feel the same way and I just rip her off. But since I am here, I might as well throw in my 2 cents. I like that geek culture has become more accepted today. She mentioned bro moments. It's always cool to have this quick connection with this perfect stranger. But as I was thinking about the question more, I realized you don't necessarily have to want to be a geek to have an appreciation for that culture. And it really hit me during the Avengers movie when I was looking around in the crowd and saw these average people who I doubt want to get into being a geek, who I doubt want to get into reading the comics, having an appreciation for this movie. And they were just as excited as I was because of the build-up of the other movies. Should I have asked them to leave because I bet that they don't know that Captain America is not part of the original Avengers lineup? Thus, this movie is not faithful to the comic book? No, of course not. That would have been rude and silly and frankly ridiculous. But here they were at this showing, just as amped as I was, wanting to watch this movie, this super geeky movie. It goes to show you that you could have an appreciation for geek culture and not having to want to be a geek. And and that goes for everything. You don't have to, maybe you don't want to get into other worlds, but you could always have an appreciation for their art form. With that said, if you do want to get into being a geek, there could be some drawbacks because the newbies can be very annoying. But that's when I have to remember to be tolerant and to remind myself that no one starts out an expert. We all have to start out from the beginning. I started out from the beginning. Others have to too. And as long as you approach wanting to be a geek with passion and with a good attitude, we welcome you into the fold. So I hope that properly answered that question, and now on to comic book reviews. This week I'll be reviewing Before Watchmen Minutemen issue 1, written and drawn by Darwin Cook. Normally this is the part where I hold up the issue, but I didn't buy it, a friend let me read it, and I will get to my reasons in a second. In the interest of full disclosure, I find the idea of Before Watchmen to be utterly stupid and frankly cheap. That's the reason why I didn't buy it. It's not a creator's rights own issue. So with that said, how was the issue? It starts off with Alan Mason, the Night Owl, writing his autobiography and giving little background information from the members of the Minutemen, which were the superhero group he was part of. Darwin Cook is an excellent writer and artist, and the issue is well written. He uses what's established in the Watchmen series to really just tell his story. So he does excellent research into the past. So with all these compliments I just paid him, what do I rate the book? I rate it 2 out of 5 stars. No matter how strong Cook's writing is, the characters sound like a pale echo compared to what Alan Moore already established. Moore wrote characters with such depth to them that although Cook is an excellent writer and this was a solid first issue, it was well written, I have to admit that. It just doesn't stack up to the original. And maybe it's not fair comparing it to the original Watchmen. But I'm sorry, if you're going to put the label of Watchmen on it, I'm going to set the bar very high. I think it's such a creatively lazy and greedy move by DC to be writing these stories right now, especially when the Watchmen story in and of itself is such an absolute story that it just doesn't need anything else added to it. Because of that, I had to rate it so low, and it gets 2 out of 5 stars for me. Next, I dropped the hammer on Marvel. Avengers vs. X-Men issue 5, written by Matt Fraction and art by John Romita. In this issue, the Avengers and the X-Men are fighting on the moon because Hope is trying to meet the Phoenix Force halfway. The Phoenix arrives. I can't say what it does because this is spoiler free, but just know that it's basically here. So this entire series is reading so hollow to me. It's filled with so much fluff. It's basically the first issue stuck on replay, but they do one thing differently to move along the plot. This book sells twice a month, and combined together it reads like a pretty decent issue, but it's so freaking greedy of Marvel to split it in half and sell it twice a month. On top of that, there's the AVX book, which is a story that happens between the panels of just one single issue. But the thing that makes me the most angry is how it's taken over the regular issues. Uncanny X-Men and Wolverine and the X-Men were some of my favorite comics. They were simple, standalone stories. You didn't have to read other comics to understand what was going on, and I could recommend to people. But since this stupid event started, I really can't recommend these comics anymore. And it infuriates me that that Marvel's done this. Like I said, it's such a freaking greedy move of Marvel to be doing this. This is probably their most greedy event ever. I'm still interested to see what happens at the end of it, but it better be something spectacular to make me wait through all this. So I'm going to be very angry if Marvel just lays another goose egg, another crap on this. So you better get it together. I ultimately have to rate this 2.5. It was flirting hard with 3, but it just couldn't close the deal. 2.5 stars out of 5. Finally, and so I don't end my reviews on such a sour note, Journey into Mystery, issue 639, written by Kieran Gillian and art by Richard Elson. In this story, the Celtic gods are being attacked from within, and they go to the Norse gods for help, but they can't interfere because other pantheon gods can't get involved in civil matters. However, they still want to help, so they send Loki because he's a known scoundrel, and even if he were to get caught, nobody would be surprised that he wasn't following the rules. So I continue to promote this book a lot and aggressively because it is such an excellent book for just $2.99, and it's so rare to find that in today's comics. Yes, I know that DC has its whole $2.99 line and some of their comics are great, but they've really reduced the page count, and you could tell in the story, but that is not so for this comic. Month after month, it has been excellent. This is a perfect jumping on board for new readers. It's new reader accessible because even if you didn't read the last arc, you don't need to understand this new story. I would like to welcome back Richard Elson, who was the artist of the book, but took a 2-issue hiatus. Him and Kieran Gillian are doing excellent work together, and this has been one of the strongest titles for just months since they started working on it together. If you're a fantasy of the fantasy genre, this is definitely a book for you. You have to be a fan of that genre to really love this book. Ultimately, I rate this 4.5 stars, and I could not be happier that the team is back together, and it is such a great book. That's it for me this week. As always, let me know what you think of my video, comment, and subscribe. Feel free to ask me any questions. I am a friendly geek. Come back next week where I will have an epic rant on the recent cancellation of Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes on Disney XD. They canceled it and I'm angry, but this video is too long and I cannot comment on it right now. As always, check out the other more awesome, spectacular Geeks of the Week, and I will see you all next week. Bye. Be utterly stupid and just lazy and cheap and dumb, and I hate it. I fucking hate it!